The rain hammered against the tin roof of the Roadside Diner like 1,000 desperate fingers trying to get in. Lydia Harper wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her reflection distorted in the chrome napkin dispenser. Dark circles shadowed her blue eyes, eyes that had forgotten how to hold hope. Her fingers trembled as she squeezed the dishcloth, not from cold, but from the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd been running on empty for too long. The bell above the door chimed. A gust of wind carried in dead leaves and the sharp smell of gasoline. Then came the man. Stumbling, soaked, his white shirt blooming red across the chest, he collapsed before he reached the counter. His body hitting the linoleum with a sound that made the late-night truckers jerk their heads up from their coffee. "Help!" he gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "Please!" Lydia dropped the cloth and ran. Her knees cracked against the wet floor as she pressed a wad of napkins against the gash on his forehead. Warm blood seeped through her fingers. Her heart hammered, but her voice stayed steady. "Mike!" "Call 911!" she shouted toward the kitchen. The cook's panicked face appeared in the serving window, phone already to his ear. The man's eyes rolled, unfocused, searching. His lips moved. Lydia leaned closer. "Catching fragments, soldiers, old lies, they're coming back. Stay with me," she whispered, gripping his hand. "You're not alone. Help is coming." His fingers tightened around hers once before going slack. The sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the rain's static hiss. 15 minutes later, the paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher as they wheeled him past. His eyes fluttered open. "Thank you." "Angel," he managed. Lydia stood in the doorway, watching the ambulance lights paint the wet pavement red and blue. The rain plastered her uniform to her skin. She didn't move until the lights disappeared. Swallowed by the dark Missouri countryside, back inside, she scrubbed the blood from her hands with dish soap that smelled of artificial lemon. The water ran pink, then clear, in the cloudy mirror above the sink. She barely recognized herself. When had she gotten so old? She was only 35. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Mom, I heard weird noises at Mrs. Eleanor's. Should I check?" Lydia's stomach tightened. Eleanor Whitford lived next door to their rental, a weathered Victorian with peeling white paint and a garden gone wild. The old woman was kind but fragile, and Maya had taken to visiting her every morning before school. "Bringing toast and company," she typed back quickly. "Stay inside, lock the door. I'll check when I get home." But even as she sent it, unease crawled up her spine. Eleanor had seemed strange lately, jumpy. Distracted last week, she'd gripped Lydia's wrist with surprising strength and said, "Some truths are buried so deep only the innocent can dig them up, and sometimes that costs everything." Lydia had thought it was just old age talking. Now she wasn't sure. "You okay, Lydia?" Mike called from the kitchen. "Fine," she lied, grabbing a clean apron. 3 more hours until her shift ended. 3 more hours until she could go home and make sure Maya was safe. The diner was quiet except for the rain and the low murmur of the TV mounted in the corner. The local news droned on about highway construction and high school football. Then the anchor's tone shifted, sharpening with importance. In other news, General Cole Harrington arrived in Riverside today for an undisclosed military matter. The decorated general, known for his service in Operation Iraqi Freedom, was accompanied by several high-ranking officers. Lydia looked up. The screen showed a man in his 60s stepping out of a black SUV, his posture military perfect, his face carved from stone. Behind him, 3 younger officers, a woman with severe features, a man with cold eyes, and another with a kind face that didn't match his uniform. Something about the general's face made Lydia's breath catch. She'd never seen him before. She was certain of that, but the way he held his shoulders, the set of his jaw, it reminded her of something, someone. The memory hit like a fist. She was 12 years old, standing in a grey government office, while a woman in a navy suit explained that her father was dead, not just dead, dishonored, a traitor who'd sold out his own men. The woman had used words like classified and national security and for the best. Lydia had stopped listening. Her father's name, Daniel Harper, had become poison overnight. She'd spent the next 23 years trying to forget it. The TV cut to commercial. Lydia realized she was gripping the counter so hard her knuckles were white. She forced herself to breathe, to unclench her hands. It was nothing, a coincidence. Soldiers came through town all the time, stopping for gas and coffee on their way to Fort Leonard Wood. But that night, as she drove home through sheets of rain, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, like a door she'd nailed shut years ago had just creaked open. At home, Maya was curled on the couch, algebra book open but untouched. At 13, she had Lydia's eyes, but none of her weariness. Her daughter still believed the world was basically good. "Did you check on Mrs. Eleanor?" Maya asked immediately. "Not yet. Come with me." They crossed the yard with a flashlight, rain soaking through their jackets. Eleanor's house was dark, except for a dim glow in the upstairs window. Lydia knocked. No answer. She tried the knob. Locked. "Mrs. Eleanor," Maya called, pressing her face to the window. "It's us." A shadow moved upstairs, then the porch light clicked on, and Eleanor appeared behind the glass door, her white hair loose around her face. She looked older than 78. She looked terrified. "Are you all right?" Lydia asked as Eleanor opened the door. "I'm fine, dear. Just old nightmares." But her hands shook as she pulled her cardigan tighter. Her eyes darted past them to the street, searching the darkness. "You should go home, both of you. Lock your doors tonight." "Mrs. Eleanor." "Please," the old woman's voice cracked. "Trust me, just for tonight." "Be careful." She closed the door before they could argue. Through the window, they watched her climb the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing, the other pressed to her chest. "Mom, she's scared," Maya whispered. "I know, baby." Lydia put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Come on." That night, Lydia lay awake, listening to the rain and thinking about blood on linoleum, about a general's face on TV, about her father's name spoken like a curse, thinking about Eleanor's words. Some truths are buried so deep, she didn't know it yet. But the digging had already begun. 3 days later, the military convoy rolled into Riverside like an omen. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows, too clean for the dusty Missouri roads. They parked in front of the Roadside Diner just as the lunch rush hit, and Lydia watched through the window as uniformed figures emerged. Her stomach dropped. General Cole Harrington entered first, his presence filling the small diner like smoke. Behind him came the others, the severe woman, the cold-eyed man, and the kind-faced one who held the door for an elderly customer. They took a corner booth, the general's back to the wall, his eyes scanning the room with the efficiency of someone trained to identify threats. Lydia grabbed her order pad, willing her hands not to shake. She approached their table with her professional smile locked in place. "Afternoon, what can I get you?" The general looked up slowly, his gaze traveled over her face like he was reading a document, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. The silence stretched 2 seconds too long. "Coffee, black, and apple pie if it's fresh," he said finally, his voice granite smooth. "It is." She turned to the others. The kind-faced one, captain's bars on his uniform, smiled at her. "Same for me, and a slice of that cherry pie I saw up front." "You got it," she scribbled quickly, desperate to escape the general's scrutiny. "And your name?" the cold-eyed lieutenant asked. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Lydia." She didn't offer her last name. Something in her gut screamed danger. "Pretty name," he said, still smiling. "How long have you worked here, Lydia?" "Few years." She tucked the pad into her apron. "I'll get those orders right out." She fled to the kitchen, her heart racing. Through the serving window, she watched them talk in low voices, heads bent together. The general's face was stone. The lieutenant kept glancing at her. Only the captain looked uncomfortable, his jaw tight. "Who are they?" Mike asked, flipping burgers. "Military brass, general and his staff. What are they doing in Riverside?" No idea, but the lie tasted sour. Part of her knew exactly why they were here. Part of her had been waiting for this moment since she was 12 years old, when she brought their coffee. Her hands trembled just enough to spill a drop on the saucer. The captain noticed and offered a reassuring smile. "It's okay," he said quietly, "just for her." Their eyes met. His were warm brown, concerned, nothing like the lieutenant's cold assessment or the general's predatory calculation. She nodded and retreated. Feeling the weight of 3 sets of eyes on her back across town, Maya sat in history class, trying not to cry. Mr. Peterson had assigned a project, Heroes and Traitors in American Military History. Students were supposed to research a historical figure and present their findings. Tyler Bennett, 2 years older, all swagger and cruelty, had taken one look at the list of names and grinned. "Hey, isn't your last name Harper?" Maya's stomach clenched. She saw it on the list before he even pointed. "Sergeant Daniel Harper, accused of treason, 2003. Your grandpa was a traitor," Tyler announced to the room. "Sold out American soldiers, got them killed." "That's enough, Tyler," Mr. Peterson said. But the damage was done. 20 pairs of eyes turned to Maya, some curious, some pitying, some gleeful. Maya grabbed her books and ran from the room, ignoring Mr. Peterson's calls. She locked herself in the bathroom and pressed her forehead against the cold stall door. Her grandfather was a traitor. Her mother had never told her. Why had her mother never told her? After school, Maya didn't go home. She went to Eleanor's house and let herself in with the key the old woman had given her. Eleanor was in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a teacup she wasn't drinking. "Mrs. Eleanor, did you know my grandfather?" The teacup slipped, cracking against the saucer. Eleanor's face went white. "Maya, everyone at school knows they're calling him a traitor. They're calling my family traitors." Tears burned her eyes. "Is it true?" Eleanor stood slowly, crossing to Maya. She cupped the girl's face in her papery hands. "Your grandfather was no traitor, child. He was the bravest man I ever knew, braver than my own husband. God rest him." "Then why does everyone say he was?" "Because sometimes the truth is dangerous to powerful people, and powerful people will bury the truth under lies so deep no one dares dig." Eleanor's hands trembled. "But I kept digging. I kept every piece of evidence, and now—" She glanced toward the window. "Now those powerful people are here. The soldiers at the diner. You've seen them." Eleanor's grip tightened. "Maya, listen to me carefully. If anything happens to me, anything, there's something you need to get. Upstairs in my bedroom, there's a loose floorboard under the rug by the window. Underneath it is an envelope. Promise me if something happens, you'll take it to your mother. Not the police, not anyone else. Your mother, promise." "You're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared. We all should be." Eleanor released her, stepping back. Her shoulders sagged like all her bones had gone soft. "But you're strong." "Maya Harper, stronger than you know, just like your grandfather." That evening, General Harrington sat in the hotel conference room with his 3 officers. A laptop displayed a photograph. Lydia Harper, age 35, waitress at the Roadside Diner, daughter of Daniel Harper. "She doesn't know anything," Major Evelyn Cross said. The severe woman leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "She was 12 when her father died. She's lived quietly here for over a decade. She's not a threat." "Everyone's a threat until proven otherwise," Lieutenant Julian Pierce countered. He tapped the screen. "She's been seen with Eleanor Whitford, the widow of Richard Whitford, the man who testified against Harper at the court-martial. Eleanor's 80 years old and barely leaves her house," Evelyn said, "which makes me wonder what she's been doing in that house all these years." Julian's smile was knife-thin. "What if she kept records? What if she knows the truth?" "The truth died with her husband," Harrington said flatly, but his jaw was tight. Captain Drew Maddox had been silent, staring at the photo of Lydia. He'd noticed things in the diner, the way she moved with purpose, despite obvious exhaustion, the gentleness when she'd served the elderly trucker in the corner booth, the flash of fear when she'd looked at the general. She didn't seem like someone hiding dark secrets. She seemed like someone barely holding on. "Sir, with respect, maybe we're overreacting," Drew said. "If Harper's daughter knew anything, she'd have come forward years ago. The case is closed, classified. She has no reason to dig, unless someone gives her one," Harrington said. "I want surveillance on both of them. The waitress and the old woman, discreet. Report anything unusual." "Sir, that's an order." "Captain, Drew's jaw clenched, but he nodded. He'd been in the military 15 years, and he'd learned when to fight and when to fold. But as the meeting ended and he returned to his hotel room, he couldn't shake the image of Lydia's face, the fear in her eyes when she'd looked at them. He pulled up the file on Daniel Harper, the official story. Sergeant Harper had sold troop positions to insurgents in Iraq, leading to an ambush that killed 17 American soldiers. The evidence had been damning: a suspicious bank deposit, encrypted emails, testimony from his commanding officers. He'd been court-martialed, found guilty, and executed by firing squad within 6 months. But Drew had read enough classified files to know that sometimes the official story was just that, a story. And something about this one didn't sit right. His phone buzzed. A text from Julian. The old woman's nervous. She knows we're here. Drew stared at the message, unease coiling in his gut. Whatever was happening in Riverside, it was bigger than a waitress and an elderly widow, and he had a sinking feeling it was about to get much worse. Maya climbed the narrow stairs to Eleanor's attic, dust motes dancing in the shaft of morning light from the dormer window. The old woman sat in a rocking chair, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled in faded ink, 1998-2003, Richard's papers, personal, do not open. Are you sure about this? Eleanor asked, her voice thin. I need to know. Maya set down the box she'd carried up. About my grandfather, about what really happened. Eleanor's hands shook as she lifted the lid off a box marked Harper. Classified inside, manila folders bloomed like dangerous flowers. She pulled one out carefully, as if it might explode. Inside were photographs. Maya gasped. A young man in military dress uniform smiled out at her. His eyes were her mother's eyes, his jaw strong, his shoulders broad. Next to him stood a pregnant woman with kind eyes and worry lines already forming. A younger Eleanor and a grey-haired man in uniform flanked them. Your grandfather and grandmother, Eleanor said softly. Sarah was 8 months pregnant with your mother in this photo. It was taken a week before Daniel deployed. Richard, my husband, was Daniel's commanding officer. They were like brothers. What happened to them? Eleanor's face crumpled. Everything that shouldn't have. She pulled out another folder, this one stuffed with official documents stamped top secret. After the court-martial, Sarah had a breakdown. Your mother was only 12. Sarah died 2 years later. They said it was heart failure, but I know better. It was grief. It was shame that shouldn't have been hers to carry. Maya traced her finger over her grandfather's face. Why did he do it? Why did he betray everyone? He didn't. Eleanor's voice turned sharp. That's what they wanted everyone to believe. But Daniel Harper was no traitor. He was murdered by men who needed a scapegoat. Then why? Because he discovered something. Something that would have destroyed careers, reputations, lives. Eleanor leaned forward. In 2003, there was an ambush. 17 men died because someone leaked their position. The military needed someone to blame. Daniel was investigating who really leaked the information. He was getting close, too close. Who was it? Eleanor's eyes flicked to the window, then back. Men who are in this town right now. Men with stars on their shoulders and ice in their veins. Maya's blood ran cold. The general. Cole Harrington was a major then. Ambitious, reckless. He made a mistake. A phone call that was intercepted. Daniel found proof, so they framed him first. Made him the traitor before he could expose the real one. But you have proof. Real proof. I have what Richard couldn't live with. He testified against Daniel to save his own career, to protect me. But the guilt ate him alive. Eleanor pulled out a small tape recorder, ancient and worn. Before he died, he recorded everything, the truth, all of it. I've kept it hidden for 20 years because I was afraid, because I'm a coward. Her voice broke. But your mother deserves to know. You deserve to know. Downtown. Lydia refilled Drew Maddox's coffee for the 3rd time that week. He'd been coming in daily, always alone, always sitting in the same booth by the window. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Small talk about the weather. About nothing. About everything except why a captain kept visiting a small-town diner. You're going to float away if you drink any more coffee, Lydia said. a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. Probably, Drew grinned. But it's good coffee, and the company's better. Heat crept up her neck. She wasn't used to being noticed, not like this. Not by someone who looked at her like she mattered. "Can I ask you something?" Drew said, his expression turning serious. Her guard snapped back up. "Depends. Why Riverside? It's a long way from anywhere." "That's the point." The words came out before she could stop them. "Sometimes you need distance from the past." He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "I get that. The military's good for that too. New post every few years. Leave the ghosts behind. Does it work?" "No." His smile was sad. "They follow anyway." Before she could respond, the door opened. Lieutenant Julian Pierce walked in, his cold eyes finding her immediately. Her stomach twisted. "Captain," Julian said, sliding into the booth across from Drew. "I didn't know you'd be here. Just getting coffee." Drew's voice had gone flat. "Right." Julian's gaze swept over Lydia. "And getting to know the locals. That's good. Builds trust." He turned to her. "Lydia, isn't it? You've lived here, what, 10 years? 12? She wanted to run. "That's a long time. Must know everyone, including Eleanor Whitford." "She's my neighbor." The words came out defensive. "Nice lady, my mother's about her age. They get lonely, don't they? The old ones start talking about the past. Sometimes they remember things that are better left forgotten." The threat was barely veiled. Lydia's hands clenched around the coffee pot. "Mrs. Whitford minds her own business. Maybe you should do the same." Julian's smile sharpened. "Just making conversation. No offense meant. None taken." She walked away before her hands started shaking visibly. At the counter, she gripped the edge until her knuckles went white. Mike caught her eye from the kitchen, concern creasing his face. She shook her head slightly. "Not now. Not here." When she glanced back, Drew was leaning across the table, speaking in a low, angry voice. Julian laughed and stood, dropping bills on the table. He paused by the counter on his way out. "Nice talking with you, Lydia. Give my regards to your neighbor. And your daughter." He was gone before she could respond. The door chiming cheerfully behind him, the coffee pot slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the tile. That night, Maya stayed late at Eleanor's. Helping her organize the attic, they worked in silence, the weight of secrets pressing down. Finally, Maya spoke. "When are we going to tell my mom?" "Soon." Eleanor sealed a box with trembling hands. "But we need to be careful. These men are dangerous. They've already killed to keep their secrets. They won't hesitate to do it again." "Then why not just give everything to the police?" "Because some of them are compromised. Bought, threatened, or simply too scared to act." Eleanor looked at her seriously. "The only person I trust with this is your mother. And maybe that captain who keeps visiting the diner. Captain Maddox. I've seen the way he looks at her. And I've seen the way Lieutenant Pierce watches them both." Eleanor's expression hardened. "We need allies, Maya. Real ones. Because this is about to get much worse." As if summoning it, a car engine growled outside. Headlights swept across the attic window. Maya crept to the glass and peered down. A black SUV idled in front of Eleanor's house. She couldn't see inside, but she didn't need to. The message was clear. "We're watching." "Mrs. Eleanor," Maya whispered. "They're here." The old woman joined her at the window. In the streetlight's glow, her face looked carved from bone. "Then we're out of time. Tomorrow. I'll give you the envelope. You'll take it to your mother, and then—" She touched Maya's cheek. "Then you and Lydia need to run as far and as fast as you can." "What about you?" "I'm an old woman. I've lived my life. But you're just beginning. You have to survive this, Maya. You have to make sure the truth survives." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "Your grandfather died for it. I won't let that be in vain." The SUV pulled away slowly. A predator circling its prey. In the hotel, Drew Maddox sat on his bed, staring at the file on Daniel Harper. Julian's words echoed in his head. Sometimes they remember things that are better left forgotten. But what if those things needed to be remembered? What if the past wasn't buried, just hidden? And what if Lydia Harper was about to pay the price for her father's sins, even though she was innocent? He opened his laptop and began to dig deeper, pulling files he technically didn't have clearance for. If he was going to protect Lydia, He needed to know exactly what she was up against. What he found made his blood run cold. This wasn't just about covering up a mistake. It was about something much bigger, and Lydia was standing right in the blast radius. Drew returned to the diner the next morning carrying guilt like stones in his pockets. Lydia was wiping tables, her movements mechanical, exhaustion etched in the set of her shoulders. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe, or wariness. Both, probably. "You're consistent, I'll give you that," she said, pouring coffee before he asked, "Creature of habit." He wrapped his hands around the mug, watching steam curl between them. "Or maybe I just like the pie. We both know it's not about the pie." She slid into the booth across from him. Checking over her shoulder to make sure no one needed her, the diner was quiet. Just 2 truckers at the counter and an elderly couple in the corner. "So what is it about, Captain Maddox?" The use of his title stung. They'd moved past that, or so he'd thought. "Drew, please. Drew." She tested the name like she wasn't sure it was safe. "Why do you keep coming here?" "Honestly," he met her eyes. "At first it was orders. Keep tabs on you, make sure you weren't a threat." Her face went carefully blank. "And now I know you're not a threat to anyone, except maybe yourself, working 2 jobs and barely sleeping." He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "Now I come because I want to, because when I'm here, I remember there's more to life than following orders. That's dangerous thinking for a soldier." "Maybe." A smile tugged at his mouth. "But you make me want to be dangerous." Color bloomed in her cheeks. She looked down, her fingers tracing patterns on the table. "I don't have room in my life for dangerous. I have a daughter to protect. Maya, 13, smart, kind, visits Eleanor Whitford every morning." When Lydia's head snapped up, eyes wide, he added quickly, "I'm not spying on you. Not anymore. But others are, and you need to know that. The lieutenant, Julian Pierce. He's ambitious. He sees threats everywhere, and he has Harrington's ear." Drew lowered his voice. "Lydia, I think you're in danger. I don't know why exactly, but it has something to do with your father." She flinched like he'd slapped her. "I don't talk about my father." "Maybe you should. Maybe that's why they're here. My father was a traitor. He sold out his own men. He died in disgrace." The words came out flat, rehearsed. "There's nothing more to say." "What if there is? What if the story you were told isn't true?" She laughed, a brittle sound. "You think I haven't wondered? You think I haven't spent 23 years trying to make sense of why my father would do that? I was 12 when they told me, 12 when my whole life became a lie. My mother died from the shame. I went to foster care. I changed my last name 3 times trying to outrun it." Her hands were shaking now. "And you know what I learned. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is survival, and talking about Daniel Harper is the opposite of survival." "Lydia?" "No," she stood abruptly. "Whatever you think you're doing, playing hero, solving your conscience, stop. I don't need saving. I need you to leave me alone." She walked away before he could respond, disappearing into the kitchen, through the serving window. He saw her lean against the wall, head bowed, shoulders shaking silently. He left cash on the table and walked out, the taste of failure bitter in his mouth. At Riverside Middle School, Maya sat in the library during lunch, trying to be invisible. It wasn't working. Tyler Bennett and his friends had found her table. "Hey, Harper, heard your grandpa got shot for being a coward." Tyler grinned, all cruelty and teeth. "That true?" Maya kept her eyes on her book, though the words blurred together. "My dad says they should have hanged him. Made an example." "Leave her alone, Tyler." A new voice cut through. Sophie Chen, quiet, smart, never part of any group, stood behind them with her arms crossed. "You're being pathetic." "What's it to you, Chen?" "I don't like bullies and you're boring." Sophie's expression was pure disdain. "Go find someone else to harass." Tyler muttered something crude but left, his friends trailing after him like jackals. Sophie slid into the chair next to Maya. "You okay?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "They're idiots. Whatever your grandfather did or didn't do, it's not your fault." Sophie pulled out her own lunch, homemade dumplings that smelled like ginger and green onions. She offered one to Maya. "Here, my mom always packs too much." Maya took it, the kindness unlocking something in her chest. "Thank you. We outcasts have to stick together." Sophie smiled. "Plus, I did some research. Your grandfather's case was weird. The trial was super fast. The evidence was all classified, and the main witness died right after. That's suspicious. You researched it. I like mysteries, and this town is boring." Sophie lowered her voice. "If you want help figuring out what really happened, I'm in." For the first time in days, Maya felt hope flicker. "Really? Really? But we have to be smart and careful, because if your grandfather's case was shady, that means someone powerful wanted him gone, and powerful people don't like being exposed." After school, Maya went straight to Eleanor's. The old woman was in bed, curtains drawn, her breathing shallow. Maya's heart lurched. "Mrs. Eleanor?" "I'm all right, dear, just tired." But her voice was weak. Did you think about what I said? About the envelope? I didn't tell my mum yet. She's so stressed already. I don't want to." "Maya." Eleanor's grip was surprisingly strong as she caught the girl's wrist. "This isn't about stress. This is about life and death. Those men aren't just watching anymore last night. Someone tried my back door. They want what I have, and they'll hurt anyone in their way to get it." Fear iced Maya's veins. "Then we should go to the police. The police answer to the mayor. The mayor answers to the governor. The governor answers to people like Harrington." Eleanor's eyes were fierce despite her frailty. "The only person who can fight this is your mother, because she has the one thing they can't control, the truth about her father. She just doesn't know it yet." "Then I'll tell her tonight." "Wait." Eleanor struggled to sit up. Maya helped, propping pillows behind her. "There's more. In the envelope, there's also information about a bank account. Money Richard set aside, compensation for Sarah, for your mother. It's not much, but it's enough to start over, enough to run if you need to." "How much?" $50,000, hidden in an account under your grandmother's maiden name." Richard felt guilty. He wanted to help, even after. She trailed off, coughing. "The account information is in the envelope. Tell your mother she earned every penny of it and she should take it without shame." Maya nodded. Overwhelmed. A bank account. Proof of her grandfather's innocence. Dangerous men circling. It was too much. She was just 13. But then she remembered her mother's tired eyes, the way she flinched when anyone mentioned the military. The shame Lydia carried without deserving it. Maya thought of her grandfather, executed for crimes he didn't commit, of her grandmother dead from grief. She straightened her shoulders. "I'll tell her tonight. I promise." "Good girl." Eleanor squeezed her hand. "You're braver than you know, braver than your grandfather even. He'd be so proud." As Maya left, she didn't notice the black sedan parked 3 houses down, or the camera lens pointed at Eleanor's front door. She didn't see Julian Pierce sitting in the driver's seat, phone pressed to his ear. "She's there again," he said. "The daughter. They're planning something. I think it's time we accelerated our timeline." On the other end, Harrington's voice was cold. "Do it, but make it look natural. No traces." "Understood, sir." Julian hung up and watched Maya disappear down the street. The girl had no idea she'd just become collateral damage. He almost felt sorry for her. Almost that evening, Lydia came home to find Maya in the kitchen, anxiety radiating from her like heat. The girl had made dinner, boxed mac and cheese, carrot sticks, attempts at comfort food. "Baby, what's wrong? Mom, we need to talk." Maya's voice shook. "About Grandpa Daniel, about why those soldiers are really here, about everything you never told me." Lydia felt the floor tilt. "Maya, I know the truth Mrs. Eleanor told me. She has proof that he was innocent, that he was murdered, that the general who's in town right now is the one who did it." The words tumbled out in a rush. "And they're watching us. They tried to break into her house. They're going to come after us next if we don't do something." Lydia sank into a chair, her mind reeling. Innocent. Her father was innocent. After 23 years of shame and anger and grief, he'd been innocent all along. Where's this proof? Hidden under Mrs. Eleanor's floorboard, recordings, documents, everything. Maya gripped her mother's hands. "Mum, we have to get it. We have to tell someone. We have to—" A crash of glass from next door. Both of them froze. Then Eleanor's scream, thin and terrified, cut through the night. Lydia ran. Lydia burst through Eleanor's back door. Maya right behind her. The kitchen was chaos. Drawers yanked open, cabinets rifled, papers scattered across the linoleum like snow. Eleanor sat crumpled against the refrigerator, blood trickling from a cut on her temple. "They came," she gasped, her voice thin as wire. "Took my keys, went upstairs, Maya, the envelope." "Stay with her," Lydia commanded, already moving. She grabbed a kitchen knife from the block and took the stairs 2 at a time. Her heart a war drum. Adrenaline burned through her veins, scorching away fear and leaving only fury. These men had destroyed her father. They would not touch her daughter or this woman who'd kept their secrets. The bedroom door hung open. A figure in dark clothes crouched by the window, prying up floorboards with a crowbar. He didn't hear her until she was 3 feet away. "Get out of her house!" The man spun. Young. Military haircut, face she didn't recognize. Not Julian, not Drew, someone else. His eyes went to the knife, then her face, calculating odds. "Mom, I'm just doing my job. Walk away." "This is breaking and entering. I've already called 911. A lie, but he didn't know that. Uncertainty flickered across his features. He glanced at the floorboards, then back at her. Whatever he was looking for, he hadn't found it yet. "There's nothing here for you, just old papers, government business." "Then get a warrant." Lydia's hand didn't shake, not anymore. She'd spent 23 years afraid. That ended now. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone else had called. The man cursed, dropped the crowbar and shoved past her. His shoulder caught hers, spinning her against the wall. By the time she recovered, he was gone, boots thundering down the stairs, back door slamming. Lydia ran to the window, in time to see him vault the fence and disappear between houses. The sirens grew louder. She turned to the floor. The boards he'd been prying up were loose but not removed. She pulled them free. Heart hammering below, in the dusty gap between joists, lay a manila envelope thick with contents. She grabbed it, feeling its weight. The weight of truth, of vindication, of 23 years of lies about to crumble. "Mom!" Maya's voice from downstairs. "The ambulance is here." Lydia shoved the envelope inside her jacket and zipped it shut. Whatever happened next, this evidence wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. The paramedics stabilized Eleanor. Mild concussion, shock, but no permanent damage. Sheriff Thompson arrived with 2 deputies, his weathered face grave as he surveyed the damage. "Mrs. Whitford, can you identify who did this?" he asked gently. Eleanor's eyes found Lydia's across the room, a silent question. Lydia shook her head minutely. Not yet, not until they knew who to trust. "No," Eleanor said, her voice frail. "It was dark, happened so fast." Thompson's eyes narrowed slightly. "But he didn't push. Military's in town, might be worth asking if they saw anything suspicious." "Might be," Lydia agreed, her tone neutral after the sheriff left, after Eleanor was settled in her own bed with Maya watching over her. Lydia walked home through the 3 a.m. Darkness. Every shadow felt alive. Every car that passed made her flinch, the envelope pressed against her ribs like a second heart. Inside, she locked every door and window, closed every curtain, sat at the kitchen table under the harsh fluorescent light, and opened the envelope with shaking hands. Photographs spilled out first. Her father, young and alive, laughing at something off camera. Her mother, pregnant and glowing. Eleanor and her husband Richard at their wedding. Military records, incident reports, classified stamps everywhere. Then the recordings, 3 cassette tapes labeled in careful script. Confession Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. She found her old tape player in a closet, the one from high school, covered in stickers from bands she'd forgotten. Slid in the first tape with trembling fingers. Richard Whitford's voice crackled through the speakers, rough with illness and regret. "My name is Lieutenant Colonel Richard Whitford. I'm recording this because I don't have much time left, and I can't die with this on my conscience. In 2003, I testified against Sergeant Daniel Harper, accusing him of selling intelligence to insurgents. That testimony was a lie. Lydia listened as her world inverted, listened as Richard described how Major Cole Harrington, young, ambitious, reckless, had made a phone call on an unsecured line discussing troop movements, how that call was intercepted, how 17 men died in the resulting ambush, how Harrington had panicked and needed a scapegoat, how he'd fabricated evidence, pressured witnesses, forged bank records, how Daniel Harper had discovered the truth and threatened to report Harrington, how Harrington struck first, turning hero into traitor with manufactured proof and powerful allies. Daniel Harper was a good man. Richard's voice continued, breaking, "The best soldier I ever commanded, and I destroyed him to save my own career, to protect my pension, to keep my wife safe from the men who threatened to ruin us if we didn't cooperate. I'm a coward. I thought I could live with it. I was wrong. The guilt is killing me faster than the cancer." The tape ended. Lydia sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. Her father was innocent, a hero, murdered by the very system he'd sworn to serve, and she'd spent her whole life hating him, being ashamed of him, running from a legacy of honor she'd never known existed. The fury that rose in her was volcanic. Incandescent, she wanted to scream, to break things, to find Cole Harrington and show him what it felt like to lose everything. But fury alone wouldn't help. She needed a plan. She needed allies. She needed... Her phone rang. Shattering the silence, unknown number 4:17 a.m., she answered, her voice steady despite everything. "Yes." Lydia Harper, Julian Pierce's voice smooth as poison. "I believe you have something that belongs to the United States government. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid. The envelope from Eleanor Whitford's house, those documents are classified. Possessing them is a federal crime. Return them immediately, and we can forget this unfortunate incident." "Go to hell." A pause. Then softer, more dangerous. "You have a daughter, 13 years old, walks to school alone every morning. It would be terrible if something happened to her." Lydia's blood turned to ice. "Touch my daughter, and I'll kill you myself." Big words from a waitress with no job and no future. His smugness radiated through the phone. "Yes, that's right, Mr. Morrison received a very interesting call tonight about your instability, your concerning behavior, your attempts to extract classified information from military personnel by seducing Captain Maddox. He's letting you go, effective immediately." The floor dropped out from under her. "That's a lie, is it? Or have you been making eyes at the good captain for weeks, meeting him privately? We have photographs, Lydia, very compelling ones, between that and your father's history of treason. Well, people will believe what makes sense. You're destroying my life over lies. I'm protecting national security. There's a difference." His voice hardened. "You have 24 hours to return that envelope. If you don't, things will get much worse for you, for Maya, for anyone who tries to help you. We have resources you can't imagine. We have power, and you're just one woman with no friends and no future." The line went dead. Lydia sat motionless, the phone still pressed to her ear, listening to silence. They were going to destroy her, just like they'd destroyed her father, the pattern repeating, history devouring its children. She looked at the envelope on the table. Evidence that could bring down a general, proof that could clear her father's name, restore her family's honor. But at what cost? Her job was already gone. Maya was in danger, and she had no idea who to trust, except maybe one person. She grabbed her keys. Drew woke to pounding on his hotel door. He checked his phone, 4:52 a.m., and grabbed his service pistol before checking the peephole. Lydia stood in the hallway, wild-eyed and shaking, her jacket zipped to her throat despite the warm night. He opened the door. "Lydia, what? You said I was in danger. You were right." She pushed past him into the room. "And you said you wanted to help. Did you mean it, or was that just another line?" "I meant it." He locked the door, set down the gun. "What happened?" She unzipped her jacket and pulled out the envelope, dropped it on the bed between them. "This is why they're here. This is proof that my father was innocent, that General Harrington framed him, murdered him, and has spent 20 years covering it up." Her voice cracked. "And now he's trying to do the same thing to me. He got me fired. He threatened Maya. He said if I don't return this in 24 hours, he'll destroy us." Drew picked up the envelope, felt its weight. "Have you looked at what's inside? Every word, every recording, it's all there. Everything we need to clear my father's name and put Harrington away." She laughed bitterly. "But what good does truth do when the person you're exposing has all the power?" "More good than you think." Drew's mind was already racing, putting pieces together. "But we can't do this alone. We need help. Someone with authority who can't be bought or intimidated." "Who?" "The sheriff answers to the mayor answers to the state. Everyone in the chain is compromised or too scared to act." "Not everyone." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. "Major Evelyn Cross. She's Harrington's XO, but she's also the most by-the-book officer I've ever met. If we can show her this evidence, she'll just turn it over to Harrington, or she'll do what's right." Drew met Lydia's eyes. "I've served with her for 3 years. She's tough, cold, follows regulations like gospel, but she's also honest. If we present her with undeniable proof of crimes, she won't ignore it. She can't. It goes against everything she believes in." Lydia wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that one person in this corrupt system would choose justice over career. But trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "And if you're wrong, if she warns Harrington, then we run. You, me, Maya. We disappear until we can find someone else who'll listen." He stepped closer. "But I don't think I'm wrong, and I think you know you can't fight this alone." She did know, hated knowing, hated needing help, but Maya's safety came before her pride. "Okay," she whispered, "we try it your way. But if this goes south, I'll get you out, I promise." Drew touched her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I should have helped sooner, should have questioned things earlier. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." For a moment she let herself lean into his touch, let herself feel something other than fear and rage. Then she pulled back, armor snapping into place. "Call your major! Set up a meeting somewhere public, somewhere they can't just make us disappear. The diner, tomorrow morning, breakfast rush, witnesses everywhere." Lydia nodded. "Tomorrow, then, we end this." She left before dawn, slipping out of the hotel like a ghost. Drew watched from the window until her car disappeared, then sat on the bed and opened the envelope, read everything, listened to the recordings, felt his stomach turn at the casual evil of powerful men protecting their own. By the time he finished, the sun was rising and his hands were shaking with fury. He'd spent 15 years believing in the honor of military service, believing that despite its flaws, the system worked, that good men rose and bad ones fell. He'd been naive. He called Evelyn at 7 a.m. She answered on the second ring, her voice crisp. "Maddox, it's early. We need to talk, face to face. It's urgent." A pause. "About what?" "About why we're really in Riverside, about Daniel Harper, about things that are above my pay grade but not above yours." He chose his next words carefully. "About doing what's right versus what's ordered." Long silence. Then, "The diner, 8 o'clock, and Captain, if this is some kind of moral crisis, I'm not your therapist." "It's not a crisis, Major. It's evidence. And after you see it, you'll understand why I called." He hung up before she could refuse. Looked at the envelope, thought about Lydia's face, the fear mixed with desperate hope, thought about Maya, 13 and brave and in danger through no fault of her own, thought about 17 soldiers dead in a desert half a world away because one man's ambition had been worth more than their lives. Tomorrow morning, he'd find out if the system could still be trusted, or if it was rotten all the way through, and if it was rotten, he'd burn it down himself. The morning shift at the Roadside Diner started like any other. Mike flipped pancakes while country music played low on the kitchen radio. The early crowd shuffled in, construction workers grabbing coffee to go, retirees claiming their usual booths. The rhythm of small-town routine. No one noticed the tension thrumming beneath the surface like a live wire. Lydia arrived at 7:30, even though she'd been fired. Bill Morrison stood behind the counter, his ruddy face uncomfortable. He'd known her for 3 years. She'd never missed a shift, never caused trouble, never done anything to deserve what he was about to do. "Lydia, you can't be here." "I know." She untied her apron, the one with her name embroidered on the pocket, and set it on the counter. "But I needed to return this in person, and to say I understand. You got a call. Someone important told you I was dangerous, unstable, a security risk." Her voice was calm, empty of accusation. "You have a business to protect." "I don't blame you." Bill's jaw worked. "It's not. I don't believe what they said, but I can't afford trouble with the military. The contracts for the base make up 30% of my revenue." "I know," she managed to smile. Thin as paper. "It's okay, Bill, really." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "For what it's worth, you were the best waitress I ever had, and whatever's going on, I hope you come out of it all right." The small kindness broke something in her. She nodded without turning around, afraid he'd see her cry. Outside, Drew was waiting by his truck. "You okay?" "No, but we don't have time for me to fall apart." She checked her watch. "Major Cross should be here in 15 minutes. "You're sure about this?" "As sure as I can be." He touched her elbow. "We're doing the right thing." The right thing felt a lot like jumping off a cliff and hoping someone had put water at the bottom. They went inside and took the corner booth, the same one Harrington and his team had occupied days ago. The irony wasn't lost on Lydia. She ordered coffee she wouldn't drink, hands wrapped around the mug for warmth she didn't feel. At exactly 8 o'clock, Major Evelyn Cross walked through the door. She was in civilian clothes, jeans, a neat blouse, her dark hair pulled back severely. Her eyes swept the diner with tactical precision before landing on their booth. She slid in across from them without preamble. "Captain Maddox, Miss Harper." Her gaze went to Lydia. "I assume this is about the accusations against you? For the record, I found them suspicious. The timeline didn't make sense. And the evidence was too convenient." Lydia blinked. "You didn't believe them." "I didn't say that. I said they were suspicious." Evelyn accepted coffee from Mike, waited until he was out of earshot. "I've been a soldier for 19 years. I've seen plenty of people do stupid things for stupid reasons, but I've also seen frame jobs. Yours had all the hallmarks." Drew leaned forward. "What if I told you it's bigger than a frame job? What if I told you this goes back 20 years and involves General Harrington directly?" Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "I'd say you better have extraordinary evidence for an extraordinary claim." Lydia pulled the envelope from her bag and placed it on the table between them. Daniel Harper, 2003, accused of selling intelligence that got 17 soldiers killed, court-martialed and executed. "That was my father." "I know. I read the file when we arrived in Riverside." Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "Why?" "Because the general ordered you to investigate me, to make sure I wasn't a threat." Lydia's hands tightened around her mug. "But what you don't know is that my father was innocent. He was framed by then Major Cole Harrington to cover up Harrington's own mistake. The same mistake that got those 17 men killed. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth, and I have proof." Lydia pushed the envelope closer. "Recorded confession from Lieutenant Colonel Richard Whitford, who testified against my father at the court-martial before he died. He admitted it was all fabricated, that Harrington made an unsecured phone call that was intercepted, that he panicked when my father discovered it, and that he destroyed an innocent man to save his career." Evelyn stared at the envelope like it was a grenade with the pin pulled. "If this is what you say it is, why come to me? Why not go straight to federal authorities?" "Because we don't know who else is compromised," Drew said. "Harrington has spent 20 years building a network of power. He's a general now. He has connections, influence, people who owe him favors. If we go to the wrong person, this evidence disappears and we disappear with it. So you're hoping I'm one of the good ones?" Evelyn's tone was dry, but not mocking. She picked up the envelope, weighing it. "I could take this straight to Harrington, tell him you tried to recruit me. That would be the smart play. Career-wise, you could," Lydia agreed. "But you won't. Because Captain Maddox says you're the most by-the-book officer he knows, and the book says you don't let criminals walk no matter how many stars they wear. Evelyn's mouth twitched, almost a smile. You're gambling a lot on Maddox's assessment of my character. Not gambling, betting everything. Lydia met her eyes. My father died for telling the truth. My mother died from the shame of lies. I've spent 23 years running from a legacy I didn't understand, and now they're threatening my daughter to keep their secrets buried. Her voice cracked. I have nothing left to lose, Major. So yes, I'm betting everything on you being the person Drew says you are. Silence stretched. Outside, a truck rumbled past. Inside, the clatter of dishes and low conversations continued, oblivious to the moment that would determine everything. Finally, Evelyn opened the envelope, read the first page of Richard Whitford's confession. Her face remained impassive, but her jaw tightened incrementally. She looked up. I need to listen to the recordings. All of them. And I need to verify these documents against classified records. Does that mean... It means I'm not making any decisions until I know exactly what we're dealing with. Evelyn's eyes were hard. If this is real, if Harrington really did what you're claiming, then it's not just murder and treason, it's conspiracy, cover-up, abuse of power across multiple administrations. Taking him down will create a shitstorm that'll reach all the way to Washington. I don't care about Washington, Lydia said. I care about my daughter's safety and my father's name. Noted, but you should care because it means powerful people will try to bury this again. Evelyn stood, tucking the envelope inside her jacket. I'll review everything today, tonight. I'll give you my decision. If I verify this is legitimate, I'll help you. I'll use every regulation, every proper channel, every bit of authority I have. But if I find out you're running a con, we're not. Then we'll talk tonight. 10 p.m., the park by the river. Come alone. She looked at Drew. Both of you, if I see anyone else, I walk. She left without another word, the envelope pressed against her ribs like contraband, which technically it was. Drew let out a breath he'd been holding. Well, that went better than expected. Did it? Lydia's hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She took the evidence. She could be showing it to Harrington right now. She won't, I know her. Drew covered Lydia's hands with his own. Trust me, I barely know you. I know, but you're here anyway. That counts for something. Before Lydia could respond, the diner door opened again. Julian Pierce walked in with two other officers Lydia didn't recognize, both young, both watching her with predatory attention. Julian's smile was all teeth. Ms. Harper. Captain, having breakfast. Just leaving. Drew said, his voice gone cold. Shame, I was hoping we could chat. Julian slid into the booth Evelyn had vacated, uninvited. About your recent activities. The break-in at Eleanor Whitford's house, for instance. Sheriff's still investigating that funny thing. Witnesses reported seeing someone matching your description fleeing the scene. Mrs. Harper. Lydia's blood iced. That's a lie, is it? Or are you just a troubled woman with a history of instability, daughter of a traitor, fired from her job for erratic behavior, now breaking into neighbors' homes? He spread his hands. It's concerning, the kind of concerning that makes people wonder if you're a danger to yourself, or worse, to your daughter. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Drew's hand went to Lydia's wrist. A silent message. Don't react, don't give him ammunition. We're leaving. Drew stood, pulling Lydia with him. Julian didn't move. Running away, that's what your father did, Miss Harper, right before he betrayed his country. Guess it runs in the family. Lydia lunged before she could stop herself. Drew caught her, held her back while Julian laughed. The other diners were staring now. Perfect. Exactly what Julian wanted. A scene. Proof of her instability. Let it go. Drew murmured in her ear. He wants you to lose control. Don't give him the satisfaction. She forced herself to breathe, to step back, to walk toward the door with her head high and her hands steady. But inside, she was screaming. Outside, in the parking lot, Drew held her while she shook with rage and fear. They're going to take Maya, she whispered. They're setting me up, making me look crazy so they can take her away. No, they're not. I won't let them. Drew pulled back, his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me. We have until tonight, until Evelyn makes her decision. Between now and then, you need to be visible. Normal, unafraid. Go to the school, pick up Maya, take her somewhere public. The library, the park. Show everyone you're stable and in control. I'm not in control. I'm falling apart. Then fake it. Because if they see you break, they win. His eyes were intense. You've survived 23 years of shame and poverty and loneliness. You can survive 12 more hours for Maya. He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. She nodded, pulling herself together piece by piece. Okay, I'll get Maya. We'll go to the library. Act normal. I'll follow at a distance. Make sure no one bothers you. Drew, she touched his face. A brief gesture of gratitude and something more complicated. Thank you for believing me, for helping. Always, he said, and meant it. At Riverside Middle School, Maya sat in English class, but couldn't focus on the lesson. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Sophie, Tyler's spreading more rumors, says your mom is a criminal now. You okay? No, she wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Last night had been terror and chaos. The break-in. Her mother's desperate determination, the envelope hidden in their house like a ticking bomb. This morning, her mom had left before dawn without explanation. Maya was frightened in a way that went bone deep. Another text. Want to come over after school? My mom said you can stay for dinner. Maya's throat tightened with gratitude. Sophie's kindness was the only good thing in this nightmare. She texted back. Maybe have to ask my mom first. Thanks. The bell rang. Maya gathered her books and headed for her locker, trying to be invisible. It didn't work. Tyler and his friends were waiting. Harper, heard your mom got fired for being crazy. That true? Maya kept walking. Tyler followed, emboldened by his audience. My dad says she's just like your grandpa, defective. Probably should be locked up before she hurts someone. Something in Maya snapped. She spun, her backpack swinging off her shoulder and slamming into Tyler's chest. He stumbled back, surprised. My mother is worth 100 of your father, Maya said, her voice shaking but fierce. She works 2 jobs to give me a good life. She's kind and strong, and she's never hurt anyone, so shut your mouth before I shut it for you. Tyler's face flushed red. You threatening me? Just stating facts. Maya's heart hammered. But she didn't back down. Around them, students had stopped to watch. Some had phones out, recording "Let Them." She was done being ashamed. Whatever, Tyler tried to save face. Your whole family's trash anyway. He walked away. His friends trailing after him with less enthusiasm than before. Maya stood in the emptying hallway, adrenaline making her shake. Sophie appeared at her side, grinning. That was amazing. That was stupid, Maya corrected. But she was smiling too. I'm going to get detention. Worth it. Did you see his face? Sophie looped her arm through Maya's. Come on, let's get out of here before a teacher shows up. They made it to the front doors before the principal's voice called out, Maya Harper, my office now. Maya's stomach dropped. Sophie squeezed her hand. Want me to come? No, but thank you. Maya straightened her shoulders and walked back down the hallway, preparing for whatever came next. In Principal Davis's office, Maya sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, while the woman behind the desk reviewed security footage on her computer. Finally, Davis looked up, her expression unreadable. Tyler Bennett has a history of bullying. His parents have been notified multiple times. However, physical aggression, even defensive, is not acceptable. I didn't hit him. My backpack swung when I turned. I saw. Davis's mouth twitched. Which is why you're getting a warning instead of suspension. But Maya, you need to understand something. Your family situation is complicated right now. There are rumors circulating. Some parents are concerned. Concerned about what? That my mom is a good person being targeted by lies. Concerned about your well-being. Davis's expression softened slightly. If things at home are difficult, we have resources, counselors, support services. Things at home are fine. Maya stood. My mother takes care of me, we take care of each other, and whatever rumors people are spreading are lies, designed to hurt us. I thought schools were supposed to stop bullying, not enable it. She left before Davis could respond. Walking out of the school with her head high and her heart pounding. In the parking lot, her mother was waiting, leaning against their old Honda with arms crossed, when Maya saw her, relief and worry tangled together. "Mom, what are you doing here? Taking you home early, we need to talk." Lydia opened the car door. "Get in, baby." They drove in silence to the public library, neutral ground, filled with witnesses. Safe. Inside, they found a quiet corner table in the back, surrounded by shelves of old encyclopedias. No one read anymore. Lydia told Maya everything, about the recordings, about Drew and Major Cross, about the threat hanging over them, about 12 hours that would determine their future. Maya listened. Her young face, older than 13, had any right to be. When Lydia finished, Maya reached across the table and gripped her mother's hands. "We're going to be okay," she said with certainty she didn't quite feel, "because we're telling the truth, and the truth has to matter, Mum. It has to." Lydia wanted to believe that, wanted to believe in a world where truth trumped power. But she'd lived too long in the real world to be that naive. "I hope you're right, baby. I really do." They spent the afternoon at the library pretending to read while watching the clock crawl toward evening. Drew checked in twice by text, all quiet, no signs of surveillance, and later Evelyn's been in her hotel room all day, reviewing everything, good sign. At 6 p.m, Lydia took Maya to Sophie's house. Sophie's mother, a kind woman named Lin Chen, answered the door with a knowing look. "Maya's always welcome here, as long as she needs. Just tonight," Lydia said. "I hope I'll pick her up in the morning." Maya hugged her mother tightly. "Be careful, always." Lydia kissed her daughter's head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, memorizing this moment, in case it was the last normal one they'd have. Then she left before her courage failed. At 10 p.m, Lydia and Drew stood in Riverside Memorial Park, near the river where moonlight turned water to silver. The park was empty, cold, haunted by the weight of what was coming. Evelyn arrived exactly on time. Her face unreadable, she dropped the envelope on a picnic table between them. "I verified everything," she said without preamble. "Cross-referenced the recordings with classified files I accessed through back channels. The timeline matches. The evidence is solid. Richard Whitford's confession is corroborated by medical records, financial transactions, and witness statements I found buried in sealed archives." She paused. "Your father was innocent, Miss Harper. He was a hero who died because he refused to let a guilty man walk free. And Cole Harrington is everything you said, a murderer, a liar, and a traitor to everything the uniform stands for." Lydia's knees buckled. Drew caught her, held her up while decades of shame and anger and grief crashed over her in waves. She'd known it intellectually since last night, but hearing it confirmed by someone with authority, with power, made it real in a way that shattered her. "What happens now?" Drew asked. Evelyn's expression was granite. "Now we take him down, but we do it right by the book. No vigilante justice, no media circus. We go through proper military channels, Inspector General, Judge Advocate General, the whole chain. It'll take time. There will be hearings, investigations, probably a court-martial that'll drag on for months. And in the meantime," Lydia's voice was raw, "Julian Pierce threatened my daughter. They'll keep coming after us. Which is why you're both going into protective custody tonight. You, Maya, and Eleanor Whitford. I've arranged a safe house through the IG's office. Harrington and Pierce don't know yet that I'm against them. They still think I'm loyal. That gives us an advantage. How long do we have to hide? As long as it takes to build an airtight case." Evelyn met Lydia's eyes. "I won't lie to you. This will be hard. Harrington will fight with everything he has. He'll call in favors, threaten people, try to discredit you again. But he can't discredit Richard Whitford's confession. He can't explain away the evidence, and he can't stop the IGs once I file the report." Drew straightened. "What do you need from us?" "Tomorrow morning, 600, I'm filing a formal complaint with the Inspector General. By noon, Harrington and Pierce will be suspended pending investigation. By evening, federal marshals will take them into custody." Evelyn's smile was cold. "But tonight, we get you three somewhere safe." Backlight, leave no traces, and trust no one except me and Maddox. What about you? Lydia asked. When Harrington finds out you betrayed him. I didn't betray him. I upheld the law. There's a difference. Evelyn picked up the envelope. Besides, I'm a major with an exemplary record, 19 years of service, and I'm doing everything through proper channels. He can't touch me without exposing himself further. She pulled out her phone. Sent a text. Within minutes, headlights appeared on the access road. An unmarked sedan with government plates, 2 men in suits got out. Federal marshals, Evelyn explained. They'll take you to the safe house. Stay there until you hear from me. Don't call anyone. Don't use social media. Don't contact anyone from your old life. Lydia looked at Drew. You're not coming. I can't. If I disappear too, it'll tip off Harrington that something's wrong. I need to stay visible, keep acting normal. He touched her face. But I'll be thinking about you every second, and when this is over, when you're safe. He didn't finish, but his eyes said everything. When this is over, Lydia echoed and let herself believe it. One marshal, a woman with kind eyes and professional efficiency, gestured to the sedan. We need to go, Mom, now. Lydia nodded. She looked at Drew one last time, memorizing his face, then climbed into the sedan. The door closed with finality. Through the tinted window, she watched him grow smaller as they drove away, until he was just a shadow among shadows. They picked up Maya first, then Eleanor by midnight. They were crossing state lines, heading towards safety that felt like exile. Maya slept with her head on Lydia's shoulder. Eleanor clutched a small bag of medications and photographs. Lydia stared out at darkness rushing past and prayed that Evelyn Cross was as good as her word. Behind them in Riverside, wheels were already turning. Evelyn filed her report electronically at 2 a.m., sending copies to 7 different offices simultaneously, making it impossible to suppress. By dawn, phones would start ringing in Washington. By noon, everything would change. But first, the darkness. First, the waiting. First, the hope that truth really did matter more than power. The safe house was a ranch-style home in rural Kansas, surrounded by empty fields and endless sky. No neighbors for miles. 2 marshals stationed outside, rotating shifts. Inside, the furniture was generic, the walls blank, the whole place designed for people in transition between danger and safety. Maya explored with nervous energy, opening closets and checking windows like she could find an escape route if needed. Eleanor settled into an armchair with a blanket and closed her eyes. Exhausted, Lydia stood in the kitchen, staring at a phone she wasn't allowed to use. Wondering what was happening back in Riverside, the female marshal, Agent Sarah Hendricks, appeared in the doorway. There's food in the fridge, basics. We'll do a supply run tomorrow. For now, try to get some sleep. How long will we be here? As long as necessary. Hendricks' expression was sympathetic but firm. I know this is hard, but you're safer here than anywhere else right now. Lydia nodded mechanically. Safe. The word felt foreign. She hadn't felt truly safe in 23 years, maybe longer, that night. She lay in the small bedroom with Maya curled beside her, listening to her daughter's breathing and the house's unfamiliar creaks. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind churned with everything that could go wrong. Evelyn changing her mind. Harrington discovering where they were, the evidence being dismissed as fabricated. The possibilities for disaster felt endless. At 6:17 a.m., her burner phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Report filed. AG office confirmed receipt. Initial review approved. Process moving forward. Lydia exhaled. First hurdle cleared by 9 a.m. Another text. Harrington summoned to IG office. Pierce with him. They don't know yet what's coming. Lydia imagined the general's face when he learned he'd been outmaneuvered. The thought brought savage satisfaction. At 11:43 a.m., both suspended, surrendered weapons and credentials. Pierce tried to run. Marshals apprehended him. Harrington lawyering up, Maya reading over her mother's shoulder, let out a whoop. They got them. Not yet. Lydia squeezed her hand. This is just the beginning. The real fight starts now. She was right. Over the next 3 days, the machinery of military justice ground into motion. Investigators descended on Riverside. Witnesses were interviewed. Files were subpoenaed. The story leaked to the press, despite efforts to contain it. Decorated general accused of framing soldier. Covering up deaths of 17 Americans, the news exploded across every platform. Cable networks ran 24-hour coverage. Social media erupted in outrage and conspiracy theories. Some defended Harrington, decorated war hero, victim of political witch hunt. Others demanded his execution. The truth became secondary to the spectacle. In the safe house, Lydia watched it all on mute. Feeling disconnected from her own life, becoming national news, reporters camped outside her old house in Riverside. Her high school yearbook photo circulated online. Strangers debated her character. Her father's guilt or innocence, whether she was brave or opportunistic. "They're making you famous," Maya said, scrolling through her tablet. Agent Hendricks had allowed limited internet access under supervision. "I don't want to be famous. I want to be left alone." But that ship had sailed. The story was too big, the injustice too compelling. Publishers called Evelyn offering book deals. Hollywood producers wanted film rights. Lawyers volunteered to represent Lydia pro bono in a wrongful death lawsuit against the military. Through it all, Drew sent daily texts, "Thinking of you. Stay strong." And Evelyn says, "Case is solid." Harrington's lawyers are scrambling, and once late at night, "I miss you. Come back safe." Lydia read that one 3 times before responding, "I miss you too." On day 5, Julian Pierce made a deal. Facing decades in military prison, he confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. The confession was damning, detailing not just the Harper case, but other instances of Harrington's corruption. His threats, his network of compromised officers. Pierce named names. The investigation expanded. On day 8, Eleanor suffered a mild stroke. She recovered quickly. The doctors said stress and age had caught up with her, but it shook everyone. Lydia sat by her bedside in the small hospital near the safe house, holding the old woman's papery hand. "I'm sorry," Eleanor whispered. "I should have spoken up 20 years ago. Should have been braver. You kept the evidence. You protected it. You gave us the truth when we needed it." Lydia squeezed gently. "That took courage." "Not enough. Never enough." Eleanor's eyes filled. "But Daniel can rest now. They'll clear his name. And they'll know he was a hero. Because of you." Eleanor smiled, peaceful for the first time since Lydia had known her. Then it was worth it. The fear, the hiding, all of it. Worth it. She slept then. Her breathing steady, Lydia stayed until visiting hours ended, then returned to the safe house where Maya waited with news. "Mum, you need to see this." She held up her tablet. On the screen, Sheriff Thompson from Riverside stood at a podium, reading a statement. "After reviewing new evidence provided by military investigators, my office is formally clearing Lydia Harper of all allegations of breaking and entering erratic behavior and any other accusations made against her. These allegations were fabricated as part of a broader conspiracy to silence her. We apologize for any distress caused and commend Mrs. Harper's bravery in bringing the truth to light." Behind him, Bill Morrison from the diner shifted uncomfortably. When reporters asked if he'd rehire Lydia, he stammered, "Of course. She's always got a job with me. Always." Maya laughed, delighted. "He's only saying that because he looks terrible." Probably. But Lydia felt vindication warm in her chest. Not because she wanted the job back, she didn't, but because the stain of accusation was finally lifting. On day 12, Cole Harrington was formally charged: conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, treason, conduct unbecoming an officer, and 17 counts of negligent homicide. His lawyers filed for dismissal. The motion was denied. Trial date set for 6 months out. 6 months, Lydia said to Evelyn during a secure video call. "That's a long time to stay hidden." "You don't have to." Evelyn's face on the screen was confident. "Pierce's confession and Whitford's recordings are enough. Harrington can't threaten you now without digging himself deeper." You're free to go home. Home. The word felt strange. Riverside wasn't really home. It had just been a hiding place, a way station between shame and whatever came next. Or anywhere else, Evelyn continued. You'll receive formal apology from the military, financial compensation for your father's wrongful death, and full exoneration. Your father's military honors will be restored posthumously. There will be a ceremony, if you want one. Lydia thought of her father, young and smiling in those photographs, dead before he turned 30. Yes, I want a ceremony. I want everyone to know he was innocent. Consider it done. That night, Lydia told Maya they could leave the safe house. Her daughter's whoop of joy brought tears to Lydia's eyes. Eleanor, recovered enough to be cranky about hospital food, declared she was ready to go home and resume her garden. Agent Hendricks arranged transportation. Before they left, Lydia stood in the empty living room of the safe house. Looking at the blank walls and generic furniture, this place had been a prison and a sanctuary both. She'd arrived broken, hunted, desperate. She was leaving stronger, vindicated, but also uncertain. What did life look like now? Where did they go? What did they become? Her phone buzzed. Drew, heard you're coming back. Dinner, just you and me. She smiled, typing back. Yes, but slowly. I need time. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. And somehow, she believed him. The Riverside courthouse buzzed with energy. News vans lined the street. Reporters jostled for position. Protesters held signs both supporting and condemning Harrington. Inside, the marble halls echoed with footsteps and whispered conversations. This wasn't the trial. That would take months yet. But today was the preliminary hearing, where evidence would be presented and Harrington would enter his plea. Lydia sat in the gallery with Maya on one side and Eleanor on the other. Evelyn sat directly behind them in full dress uniform, her presence both support and shield. Drew had wanted to come, but was deployed, coincidentally or not, to a training exercise in Alaska. His texts arrived sporadically. Thinking of you, wish I was there. The door opened. Cole Harrington entered, flanked by lawyers in expensive suits. He wore civilian clothes, no longer entitled to his uniform, but carried himself with military bearing. His eyes swept the courtroom and landed on Lydia. For a moment, they stared at each other across the space that separated victim from perpetrator. She didn't look away, didn't flinch. She'd spent too long being afraid of men like him. Harrington's mouth tightened. He turned away first. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, called order. The proceedings began with clinical efficiency. Prosecutors outlined charges, presented evidence summaries. Called the confession damning and corroborated by physical evidence, Harrington's lawyers argued procedural issues, questioned the admissibility of Whitford's recordings, suggested their client was a patriot being railroaded by political enemies. It was theatre, and everyone knew it. The real battle would come at trial. When asked for his plea, Harrington stood, "Not guilty, Your Honor." No surprise. Men like him never admitted guilt. The judge set bail. $10 million. Surrendered passport. Electronic monitoring. Harrington's family posted it within hours. He walked out of the courthouse to camera flashes and shouted questions, his face a mask of dignified innocence. Lydia watched from a window as he climbed into a town car and disappeared. Maya squeezed her hand. "He looked scared," her daughter said softly. "Good, he should be." But Lydia felt no satisfaction. Just weariness. Outside, they were mobbed by reporters. Microphones thrust toward Lydia's face, questions pelting like hail. How does it feel to see him in chains? Will you sue the military? Do you forgive the people who believed the lies? What would you say to your father if he was here? That last one stopped her. She turned to the camera, to the reporter, to the watching world. "I'd tell him I'm sorry. Sorry it took so long. Sorry I ever doubted him." Her voice broke. "And I'd tell him I love him, that I'm proud to be his daughter, that his name will be remembered with honor, not shame." Maya started crying. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes. Even some reporters looked uncomfortable. They left in Evelyn's rental car, escaping to a hotel outside town. That night, Lydia's statement went viral. shared millions of times, turned into memes and tribute videos, held up as an example of justice, delayed but not denied. Her phone exploded with messages. Distant relatives she hadn't heard from in decades, high school friends who disappeared after her father's execution, foster siblings from the group home. Everyone suddenly wanted to reconnect, to be part of her story. She blocked most of them. Their absence when she needed them had said everything, but there were good messages too. Sophie's mother invited them for dinner. Bill Morrison sent a heartfelt apology and a gift card to a fancy restaurant. The mayor of Riverside issued a formal apology on behalf of the town. Small gestures, but they mattered. Drew called from Alaska, his voice crackling with distance. "I saw your statement. You were incredible. I was terrified." "Didn't show." She heard his smile. "I'm proud of you, Lydia. Your father would be too. When do you get back?" 3 weeks, but then I have leave 2 weeks, all yours if you want them." "I want them." No hesitation. She'd spent enough time being afraid of connection. "Good, because I'm planning to spoil you and Maya, and probably Eleanor too." Lydia laughed, the sound surprising her. When had she last laughed? "We'll hold you to that." After they hung up, she sat in the dark hotel room listening to Maya's soft breathing from the next bed. In 3 weeks, Drew would be back. In 6 months, there would be a trial. Eventually, life would settle into something resembling normal. But tonight, in this moment, she let herself feel what she'd been too afraid to feel before. Hope. 4 months passed in a blur of depositions, media interviews, and legal maneuvering. Harrington's trial date approached, while his lawyers filed motion after motion. All denied, the evidence was overwhelming. Pierce's testimony was devastating. Public opinion had turned decisively against the general. Lydia tried to build a new normal. She enrolled in community college, education courses, working toward her dream of teaching. Maya thrived at school, her friendship with Sophie deepening. Eleanor moved into a smaller house near theirs, her garden blooming with spring flowers. Drew transferred to a nearby base and spent his free time with them. Dinners, movies, teaching Maya to play chess. He and Lydia moved slowly, carefully. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks by the river. Walks turned into tentative hand-holding, soft kisses, whispered confessions in the dark. Neither rushed. They'd both been burned before and knew that some things were worth taking time to build right. One evening, 3 weeks before the trial, Drew took Lydia to the place her father had been buried, a military cemetery 3 hours away. She hadn't visited since childhood, had been too ashamed, but now, with vindication secured and Drew's hand in hers, she was ready. Daniel Harper's grave was marked by a simple stone. Drew hung back while Lydia approached alone, her fingers tracing the engraved letters of her father's name. "Hi, Dad," her voice cracked. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I believed what they said about you. I should have known better. Should have fought harder." Tears streamed freely. "But they're going to fix it now. Your name will be cleared. They're giving you a Medal of Honor posthumous. But still, everyone will know you were a hero." She laid fresh flowers on the grave, the same yellow roses her mother had loved. "Mum would be so proud of you," she continued. "Of me too, maybe, I don't know, I hope so." She touched the stone. "I miss you both. I wish you could meet Maya. She's amazing, strong and kind and brave. Everything I tried to be and usually failed at." A wet laugh. "And there's someone I want you to meet someday. His name is Drew. He's a good man, patient, honest. He makes me believe that not all soldiers are corrupt, that some still believe in honor." She stayed until sunset, painted the cemetery gold and purple, talking to a father she'd barely known, saying things she should have said decades ago when she finally returned to Drew. He wrapped her in his arms without questions. "Ready?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm ready." The trial began on a Tuesday in June. The courtroom was packed. Family members of the 17 soldiers killed in the ambush. Reporters, military brass required to attend, curious citizens who'd won the lottery for public seats. Lydia sat in the front row with Maya, Eleanor, and Evelyn. Drew sat behind them in his dress uniform. Harrington entered looking older, diminished. Prison hadn't been kind, even the minimum security facility where he awaited trial. His lawyers still projected confidence, but it rang hollow. The prosecution's case was methodical and brutal. They called Julian Pierce, who testified for 2 days about Harrington's orders, his threats, his complete knowledge of the frame-up. They called investigators who'd traced the real source of the leaked information, Harrington's unsecured phone call. Intercepted and used by insurgents, they called experts who authenticated Whitford's recordings. They called character witnesses who testified to Daniel Harper's integrity and Harrington's ambition. They called Lydia. She took the stand on day 7, wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back. The prosecutor asked about her childhood, her father's arrest, the shame she'd carried. She spoke clearly. Honestly, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Did you ever doubt your father's guilt?" the prosecutor asked. "No, I believed what they told me, that he was a traitor, a coward. I hated him for it." She looked at Harrington. "But I should have doubted, because the story never made sense. My father loved the military, loved his country. He would never have betrayed either. I should have questioned, should have fought. But I was 12, and I was scared, and I wanted to survive. And now I know the truth. My father was murdered by a system that should have protected him, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure everyone knows what kind of man he really was." Harrington's lawyer tried to rattle her on cross-examination, implying she was motivated by money, by fame, by revenge. Lydia remained calm. "I don't want money," she said. "I don't want fame. I want my father's name cleared, that's all. That's everything." The jury watched her with rapt attention. Several members dabbed at their eyes. Harrington didn't testify. His lawyers advised against it. The defense rested after 3 days, their case weak and contradictory. Closing arguments took a full day. Then the jury deliberated. 4 hours later they returned. "Guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Cheers from some, gasps from others. Lydia felt Maya's arms around her, heard Eleanor's sob of relief, felt Drew's hand on her shoulder. Through it all, she stared at Harrington as the verdict was read, watching a powerful man crumble into a broken criminal. He looked at her once before they led him away. She saw no remorse in his face, just anger that he'd been caught. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Lydia faced the cameras one final time. "Justice is slow," she said, "but it came. For my father. For the 17 soldiers who died. For everyone hurt by one man's cowardice and ambition. I hope this sends a message. That no one is above the law, that truth matters, that heroes will be honored. No matter how long it takes." She declined further questions, walking away with her family, chosen and found, surrounding her that night at a quiet restaurant with Drew, Maya, Eleanor, and Evelyn. They toasted with sparkling cider. "To Daniel Harper," Eleanor said, raising her glass. "Hero, friend, father, finally vindicated." "To truth," Maya added. "To justice," Evelyn said. "To family," Drew finished, looking at Lydia. "To second chances," Lydia whispered and drank deep. 1 year later, spring bloomed across Riverside with shameless beauty. The park by the river hosted a ceremony, rows of chairs facing a small stage, a military honor guard at attention, news cameras at a respectful distance. The town had turned out in force, along with military brass, federal officials, and family members of the 17 soldiers whose names had been cleared alongside Daniel Harper's. Lydia stood backstage in a borrowed dress, Maya beside her in soft pink, Eleanor seated with a cane. But smiling, Drew adjusted his dress uniform for the 3rd time, nervous despite his years of military service. "You ready?" he asked Lydia. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They'd been through so much in the past year. Harrington's sentencing, life in military prison with no parole, Pierce serving 20 years, already regretting his deal. Lydia finishing her first year of college with honors, Maya starting high school with Sophie as her best friend, and Tyler Bennett having mysteriously transferred to a school 3 towns over. Eleanor publishing a memoir about keeping secrets and finding courage. Evelyn promoted to lieutenant colonel and assigned to a Pentagon Reform Committee, and Lydia and Drew, building something real and lasting. They'd moved in together 6 months ago, a house with a yard where Maya could have a dog and Eleanor could visit to garden. They were talking about marriage, about making permanent what already felt inevitable. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Mac announced, "please welcome Lydia Harper, daughter of Sergeant Daniel Harper." Lydia walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She stood at the podium, looking out at faces, some familiar, some strange, all watching with respect and curiosity. Behind her, a photograph of her father in uniform smiled down. Forever young, she gripped the podium and spoke. "I was 12 years old when they told me my father was a traitor. I believed them. I was taught to believe authority, to trust the system, to accept what powerful people said as truth. So I buried my grief under shame and spent 23 years trying to outrun a legacy I didn't understand." She paused. "But my father wasn't a traitor. He was a hero who died because he refused to let guilty men hide behind innocent blood. And today, finally, the world knows it." She detailed the ceremony's purpose, the posthumous Medal of Honor for Daniel Harper. Full military honors, his name engraved on the memorial to fallen heroes. She spoke about the 17 other soldiers whose names were being cleared, their families receiving apologies and compensation. She spoke about systemic reforms, new oversight, better whistleblower protections, accountability measures designed to prevent future injustices. "None of this brings my father back," she said, "or those 17 soldiers, or my mother, who died from grief and shame. But it sends a message that truth matters, that honor matters, that we will not forget those who sacrifice everything for what's right." Her voice broke. Maya stood and joined her on stage, slipping her hand into Lydia's. The crowd rose in standing ovation after the ceremony, after the medal presentation, after the formal photographs and official statements. Lydia stood alone at her father's newly dedicated memorial stone. The inscription read, "Sergeant Daniel Harper, hero, father, truth-teller, 1975 to 2003. He gave everything so justice could prevail. We did it." "Dad," she whispered, "your name is cleared. You're remembered as a hero. Maya knows her grandfather was someone to be proud of." She touched the cold stone. "I wish you could be here. Wish you could meet her. Meet Drew. See what we built from the ashes you left behind. But maybe you know somehow, maybe you're proud." Arms slid around her waist from behind. Drew's chin rested on her shoulder. "He knows," Drew said softly. "And he's proud. How could he not be?" They stood in comfortable silence, the afternoon sun warm on their backs. Then Maya's voice called out, "Mom, Mrs., Eleanor's trying to climb on the stage for more photos." Lydia laughed, a real, joyful sound that still surprised her sometimes. "We better rescue her before she breaks her hip." As they walked back toward the crowd, toward their family and friends and the future they were building, Lydia felt something she hadn't felt in 23 years. Peace. The past had been rewritten, the lies had been burned away, and in their place, truth stood tall and unshakable. That evening, at home, Drew made dinner while Maya did homework and Eleanor napped on the couch. Lydia sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset over their small yard. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages. Friends, reporters, strangers whose lives had been touched by her story. But the one she answered was from Evelyn. "Proud of you. Your father would be too. Drink soon?" "Definitely." Lydia typed back, "You're buying." Drew joined her on the porch, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Dinner's almost ready. You okay out here?" "More than okay." She pulled him down beside her. "Drew, thank you for believing me when no one else did. For fighting for us, for staying." "I'll always stay." He kissed her forehead. "You and Maya, you're my family now. Nothing's changing that." "Good." She rested her head on his shoulder, watching darkness creep across the sky. "Because I was thinking, maybe we should make it official, the family thing." He pulled back, eyes wide. "Are you proposing, maybe?" She smiled, nervous and hopeful. "If you want, no pressure. We can wait if—" He kissed her. Long and deep, answer enough without words. When they broke apart, he was grinning. "Yes, whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, next year, doesn't matter, just yes." Maya appeared in the doorway, pretending not to eavesdrop. "Are you guys getting married? Because if you are, I want to be maid of honor. Not a junior bridesmaid, that's for kids," they laughed, pulling her into a hug. Eleanor woke and demanded to know what the commotion was about. When they told her, she cried happy tears and declared she was baking a cake immediately. Arthritis be damned. That night, after everyone was asleep, Lydia stood in the hallway looking at the photographs lining the walls. Her father in uniform, her mother young and glowing, Maya as a baby, then a toddler, then the fierce 13-year-old who'd helped save them all, drew in his dress uniform, Eleanor in her garden, Evelyn at the promotion ceremony, a family built from wreckage, a life reconstructed from lies, a future earned through courage and stubborn refusal to accept injustice. She turned off the lights and climbed into bed beside Drew. He pulled her close, already half asleep, murmuring something about wedding venues and honeymoon destinations. She smiled in the darkness, feeling contentment settle over her like a warm blanket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be a wedding to plan, college classes to finish, a trial for one of Pierce's accomplices who was fighting his charges. Life wouldn't suddenly become easy just because justice had been served. But tonight, in this moment, surrounded by people she loved and who loved her back, Lydia Harper allowed herself something she'd been denied for too long. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, she imagined her father smiling down, finally at peace. What moments from this journey touched your heart most deeply? How do you imagine Lydia, Drew, and Maya's future unfolding?